Let's explore this with Eylon Levy. He's a former Israeli government spokesperson. Welcome to DW. Just explain to us how you think bombing Syria's capital keeps the Druze minority safe.
Israel is staging a humanitarian intervention now to protect the Druze minority of Syria. Israelis, Druze and Jews alike have been horrified to see the images of elderly men having their moustaches shaved off, other atrocities. And that's why Israel has done two things. One, attack Syrian troops that have been trying to enter Suwaida. But two, attacking the General Staff building in Damascus, which was used to launch those troops towards Suwaida and send a very clear message to the regime. Druze civilians must be protected. We will not allow you to harm them.
As far as we outside the country, the region are concerned, what appears to have happened is there's been a long-standing beef, if I can put it that way, long-standing rivalries between Druze and Bedouin clans in that region. The Syrian government intervened to try and keep the peace, and then Israel bombed them. Just explain to us how that works and why Israel didn't go through the diplomatic channels first to say to Syria, we're concerned about what's happening in the south of your country.
That is not what human rights observers on the ground are reporting. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights is reporting at least 21 extrajudicial executions in Suwaida by regime forces or forces loyal to the regime. And Israel looks at Suwaida and says, we cannot allow a fellow religious minority to be persecuted by Islamist forces.
OK,
let's remember
my question still stands, though. My question still stands, though. Let's say that that's what's going on. Israel sees these terrible things happening in the south of Syria. Why doesn't Israel say to Syria, this is a terrible thing, you need to sort this out? How does Israel take it upon itself to just start bombing?
Because Israel is physically stopping the Al-Qaeda, formerly Al-Qaeda-led government of Syria from attacking a religious minority.
Thank you.
And the demand for that. Now, I want to explain why...
No, because I'd like... There's quite a lot I'd like to get through. I just want to get to the point of why the diplomatic angle was skipped over.
Well, Israel does not have diplomatic relations with Syria because Syria does not recognize the state of Israel. Israel hopes that Syria will want to establish diplomatic relations, just as we seem to be on the cusp of relations with Saudi Arabia and possibly with Lebanon. If the October 7th war ends with an outbreak of peace and normalization in the region, that will be a positive development. But obviously, that's not going to come at the expense of persecuted minorities in the Middle East.
Understood. What then do you think the Syrian government would have to do for Israel to stop bombing Syria?
Israel wants the border region to be demilitarized. A lesson that Israel drew from the October 7th attacks by Hamas is that we cannot afford to have hostile forces amassing on our border and hope for the best. Israel looks at the Syrian regime with suspicion. Let's remember that the president, Ahmed al-Shara, was on the American most wanted list until he trimmed his beard, put on a suit, and became the president of Syria. He was previously the leader of HTS, an al-Qaeda offshoot. So Israel hopes that this is a leopard that has changed its spots, but fears that he is a wolf in sheep's clothing. There are behind-the-scenes talks between Israel and Syrian officials towards normalization. And if Syria makes the brave decision to support peace with Israel, Israel will, of course, welcome that.
Which takes me to my next point. Israel's attacks on Syria risk undermining ceasefires that have been established, weakening the authority of the central government and fueling regional tensions, destabilising a country that's already grappling with internal power divisions and post-Assad problems. Is the destabilisation of Syria in Israel's interests?
Israel's interest is to have a peaceful Syria that respects its minorities and wants to make peace with Israel. That is what Israel wants. That is why there are talks happening behind the scenes to establish normalization with the Syrian government. the new regime, even though Israel views it with distrust, has been beneficial in many ways because it has taken Syria out of the Iranian axis, blocked the smuggling route from Iran to Hezbollah. And Israel wants the Syrian regime to be able to have enough control of its territory that it can stop the Iranian axis rearming its proxy forces in the region.
All right.
But the Israeli government is under intense domestic pressure, not from the far right or from settlers, but from Druze in Israel. There are well-integrated minorities.
That's understood. We're running out of time, and I want to get this just on that point, on the internal pressure within Israel. As we came on air, it was announced that another ultra-Orthodox party is talking about quitting the government, leaving Benjamin Netanyahu without a parliamentary majority after another one quit yesterday. Do you see that changed political landscape having any effect on Israel's actions in Syria or indeed in Gaza?
That's a very good question. Benjamin Netanyahu, if these parties leave the government, will end up becoming a minority government. Elections will have to be held by autumn of next year, and their departure from the government obviously brings forward the risk of early elections. What the Israeli government is doing now, its stated policy, is to pursue a temporary ceasefire in Gaza, hoping to get half of the hostages out and hoping that that will allow for diplomatic talks to get an end of the war that will see Hamas relinquish power and allow the region to turn a new leaf. And these parties have said they will support a hostage deal, even from the opposition.
OK, that's very clear. Thanks for joining us, former Israeli government spokesman.
My pleasure.
Eylon Levy, thank you. Right, let's pick through this with Zadoun Al-Zoubi, who's a Syrian governance and peace-building expert. Welcome back to DW, Zadoun. Long-standing grievances between Druze factions and Bedouin tribes erupted into open violence in May of this year. They seem to calm down